I'm super happy seeing, such an audience here. That's my first time I have a chance to present, in Zurich, by the way. The product I will be talking about is my, let's say, a baby. I'm not developing in person, but somehow being a product manager of that solution in person for 3 years. My own idea of how to give you a data for that analytics. What Christopher just said, from my standpoint, was the red arrow. That's exactly I'm focusing on. My background, regardless that the naming CTO, VP, co-owner, co-founder, this is not important for me. That the point is that still a better part of my DNA is consulting, let's say. Okay, and what I tend to do, and I think I will do it till end of my life, is challenging the status quo whenever I do see that it might bring, the positive change. That's exactly the point, and this is the story of the Omniscopy. And what we decided to do, knowing the specifics of the market, and then how you are limited because of, for example, GDPR or specifics of the local law, that the tracking the user is somehow limited to, let's say, a data privacy. Okay, so it's not everything is possible. So I've been trying to find a good balance between what's possible by the law and what should be implemented in the tool just to address, the very specific aspects of, for example, typical local law. And that's the idea of the Omniscopy, knowing, the difficulties when it comes to implement, for example, a session recording, because in a core, Omniscopy is about the session recording the end user behavior in the web channels specifically. And by observing, the couple of different vendors on the market, we've been aware that implementation of user experience projects, user analytics, specifically related to session recording, it might be difficult. And then we came to the idea a couple of years ago that we want to deliver something which is easy in use, which is just like I wanna, as a business or the analytics team, the product owner, I can decide right now that I want to have a dedicated project, just like a safe sandbox, which will help me to get immediately to data which will help me to analyze, for example, the adoption rate or the end user behavior in the web channels. And I think we came to that point that we can just say that it's easy because implementation of the Omniscopy is pretty simple for you as the business people. Then it's safe because of what? We are storing the data not in the public cloud, but dedicated cloud for the specific markets. First of all, Omniscopy might be available as kind of on-prem solution. So normally in Poland we are installing at the data centers of our customers. So we do work with banking and then insurance companies, just proving that the tracking the data and session recording is doable, and we are not the breaking the wall. So well, it's just like as I said, the questioning the status quo. Another point. Besides of the fact that we are available as on-prem, Omniscopy, and it's kind of the official announcement, Dani will tell more about it, Omniscopy might be available as software as a service in local cloud on Switzerland market. That's a very important aspect. So safe. And another trick, it was a recommendation of one of my customers in Poland, from the past, that they just recommended to introduce the license model, which is very challenging to, let's say, larger players. In our case, you are paying for a session, the data you want to keep, for the data analytics. That's the point. So you might have, imagine that you might have 120 millions of visitors yearly. But if you will decide at some point that, hey, I want to just keep, that 3% of the data, that's exactly what you are paying for. This is the license model, okay? Another point is that to make it up and running, specifically for your market, you would need to create user experience project specifically with the ergonomy team, because we believe that empowering this team, with a good data will bring, let's say, more benefits faster for you, just to reduce that red arrow, at the end. From technical standpoint, how the solution works, there is no, hidden knowledge, something, the hidden secrets. It's pretty simple. You have to add an agent, just like a Google Analytics to your web page, or the Hotjar or something. But the truth is that we are anonymizing, we are sending the data, as I said, to secure cloud, something like that. So enabling monitoring in the web channel is pretty simple, and this is the way just like using whatever tag manager is helping you to enable the Omniscopy session tracking or the session recording, okay? And then what happens later on, that user behavior analytics happens somehow automatically for you, because we do aim in zero config, on our side. That's the point. I promise from us is to make that solution, running pretty simple on the market, giving you immediate, let's say, return on the investment. So the entry cost is somehow super low. That's the point. Specifically speaking, imagine that. By the way, this is the process we do monitor in one of the banks in Poland. It's like the online acquisition of the customer. Pretty simple process, straightforward operation. 4 steps, signing everything online. But just for the illustration, for the simplicity, always if something might happen wrong, at the end it will happen definitely. This is exactly what happens, and it's just like imagine that final validation is the drop-off point for the customers. So first of all, this data is recorded like a normal session. That's the point. Whoever was working with you, working with Hotjar, this techniques, because it's just like a recorded session. The truth is that we do not sample on our side, and we have probably the most precise data on the market, okay? Out of that, let's say, conversion funnel, because it's not a journey, by the way, we are creating these journeys automatically, showing you, first of all, a graphical illustration how the end users are behaving. And then graph for us is, first of all, representation of the flow, behavior of the users. So we can see, step by step, how people are flowing, for example, in the process. This magenta points are illustrating a percentage of bounces or exits at this specific page, right? Pretty simple illustration, very intuitive. Paths are paths, but remember that arrows also are showing you, the direction of the flow. Are people flowing naturally, or maybe they're just getting back for some reason? So far, there is no magic here. I know that having a table report or pivot tables, it might give you a similar data, but the truth is that our graphs are always interactive, because I do believe that searching for specific sessions which are matching, for example, that specific criteria like, hey, do show me cases whenever people decided to get back for some reason, searching for such a sessions should be simple. So as I said, our graphs are clickable, and then per running a click, we will ensure that you will see in the bottom sessions which are related to that very specific case. Moreover, what is very, very important, that once you will click, for example, on that very specific exit point over here, then on the top of the sessions, we'll show you, hey, these are, the very recent or the latest moments or interactions of the users in a session. So by clicking on, for example, that exit page, you can see, hey, show me what was the last action performed by the user, by the way. So without doing a drill down, you can see some facts, on the table. It's, the recent experience from the POC we did at one insurance company in Poland. The name is not important. It was the feedback from their side. They wanted to have it. We decided to implement it. Another point is that a user journey, which is a very specific topic. And, from our standpoint, a user journey should be for user experience people and, these persons who are in duty to design very simple, intuitive, the processes. It should be just like digital guardrails, which is helping, to flow your users in a safe way in the systems. So that's the point. From our standpoint, user journeys are, as you see, actions focused or the page focused. Zero configuration for the web again. This is the sample. It might be a super, let's say, complex or super easy. The truth is that we are creating or reporting the user journey for the flow and then the pages you want to have. So imagine it might be a whole ecosystem of pages, just like, well, if I'm, the e-banking vendor, just like, well, the bank, who is delivering, the e-banking to the market, I want to show or understand what are the relations between the pages for, let's say, whole ecosystem of my application. Simple, simple. But being, for example, the process owner of that credit application, I can decide about the subset of data and we'll show that graph, for the subset of pages. So again, reducing the complexity is also simple. Again, graph is clickable. So if you want to see the cases for the people who decided to quit at, the very specific step, very specific page, just click on it and then we'll filter the sessions just to show you the session as the record. It's just like a digital proof of what end users were doing in the web channel. Another point is that, okay, this is the sample of sessions. So do we have it here? Yeah, okay. It's just like a session. So just to show you the techniques here. Okay, it is a flow. Okay. And we do ensure that there is zero data sent to a public cloud, as I said, a record of the end user activity. For purpose, I've been doing that, the masking of the logos of the customer, just to avoid the situation that I'm promoting, the brand. I'm not allowed, to share the reference officially, but as I said, this is the process we do monitor, that onboarding in case of one bank in Poland. And again, going further, let me just go to the next slide. Okay, there is another very specific point of the Omniscopy, that we came with the promise that it will be zero coding on the website. But there is a need, from the market and from the people like you, hey, don't show me, the pages and then the analytics related to pages anymore. I need to understand behavior from the perspective of end user interactions, right? Just like a click by click, named clicks. And we have to find a way, I hope that we found that one finally, to create these meta events on our side. So there is a very specific, a language, it's kind of pre-configured something. It's just to show you that meta events on the Omniscopy are dedicated to, or were designed to find things like landing pages, exit pages, the UTM sources, additional attribution. The truth is that we are not limiting you to whatever type of the actions. Whatever you see on the interface, can be configured as the interaction of the user. And moreover, is like, it's not only about the clicks of the users on the interface, but it's also about interaction of the application with the user. So if the application, for example, wants to tell something to the user like, hey, there is a problem with validation of your data. Okay, some message appears on the screen. We can also detect such situations as the events and then make that extra attribution. And remember, the bottom line here is, it's a browser-free, codeless, just more data to understand the end user preferences, okay? The next point is, the patterns and anti-patterns. Very important part of the story, because after presenting this concept to a couple of customers and then, the partners in the past, we realized at the beginning of 2022 that market expects some automation. That's the point. Nobody right now is complaining about, let's say, lack of data. I'm personally overloaded with the amount of information, personally. You, as the analyst people, you are probably also overloaded. Once you have that, a data lake, potentially you can do everything with the data. But The only problem is that we have no time to make this analytics because the world wants to be faster. Remember that we want to reduce that red arrow, okay? So the market expects to perform, this experiments and then to double check or validate the hypothesis in the real time, something, okay? So then we came to the conclusion, hey, we have to automate it. We have to come to you with, let's say, findings automatically. That's why we decided to implement in the Omniscopy so-called machine learning or AI-based algorithms. And this is the result of our work that it's just like a sample of end user behavior. Imagine that graph is illustrating, how end users are flowing in the system. Normally, you are not seeing it in the Omniscopy because it's just like it's bringing no value. I'm using that one to explain, the idea which is supporting us with that, the automated findings. Imagine that dots are related to pages. The size of the dot is normally amount of entries or exits from specific points. Lines are showing us the relations. This is the point. It's just like behavioral graph. We have the algorithms which are helping us to create that behavioral graph. And having that data model is helping us to come to that automatic findings. So far, we have tested algorithms which are on the top of that graph, helping us to find so-called a confusion point. Me as the person or product owner or the UX analytics, it will be just like a holy grail for me if there is a system on the market which will tell me, yeah, I've just released a new version of the process application and I do see that my customers, visitors, they do behave in a different way, right? That's exactly what you want to discover. And then Omniscopy is telling you, hey, at that specific points, we are observing more or less confusion points. So it means that probably you improved, right? Because once you have the less confusions, then the process is more intuitive to the end user, then it's better, right? Another point is like, do you remember this 4 steps process? It's pretty simple, right? So the U-turns is telling me, hey, these are the moments and users are, instead of moving forward, for some reason they are getting back. Maybe it's as simple as, re-architecture of the information, like, the moving some data from a first, from let's say a first questionnaire and then, the tracking this information till the last step in the process, just to keep, the user attention still on, And over here, I know that things like, the A/B testing, validation, prototype checking, tests with the users, this interview, just like having a specific testers just to get, the surveys and then the feedback from them. This is well-known technique on the market. But once we started with Christopher and team, the discussion about how we can support you, instead of still per your, the perfection and then perfection of the process and then your huge knowledge, I just came to the conclusion, hey, statistics in the large scale, it never lies. So I can ensure that what you are designing should have confirmation in the data in a large scale, right? That's we decided to have that model implemented and to find, for example, things like confusion points, U-turns. There are a couple of other things. What you see as it's just like the magenta probably. Yeah, I'm wrong with colors, but this is the magenta. What we have implemented right now in the solution is automatic detection of the time being spent, of the changes, for example, and user spends on this specific page. And the change for him is like more time on the page at all, but also more engagement of the end user, because we are tracking with the Omniscopy real engagement. So if there is the interaction, some focus, something, we are also calculating, the engagement time, which is not like, the time on the page. For the internal processes and then, the online processes, this is very subtle difference, but very important one. Also detection of, hey, for some reason, going from the point A to the point B takes more time. than we've been observing, for example, right before change. So this is auto-detection. So having that model plus couple of the anomalies, sample anomalies, this is how the system works. Okay, the graphs I presented to you, they were designed to give you, the understanding of overall flow, to improve the exploration, and then to reduce the time you need to find that digital proof which session is about, right? Over here you have anomalies in time. A tree map is just like the illustration of the anomaly. If you want to have that specific anomaly like more engagement on the page, I want to see the samples of these cases. Or a path is slower, just click on the tree map and then we will navigate you to the session. That's exactly how it works, okay? Another point is a clustering. Because so far, automation, finding the facts, reducing your time and effort, but still as kind of, let's say, a challenger, because that's my role. I was talking to, the couple of business people and my team, okay, how we can automate more. And this automation, well, the more automation is about giving you more context, because seeing the change is good, okay? Having automatic notification about the change is also good, but then giving you a more context. This is another factor or another part of your, let's say, a daily work, which is still time consuming. So we've been doing a math, and then I just said, hey, if there are by default 9 dimensions for the session, like geography of the user, browser version, for example, browser vendor, vendor of the device, then operating system, a couple of other things. By default, we have 9 dimensions, which easily ends up with plus 2 millions of combinations, okay? And then connecting the dots, because I can easily, highlight affected sessions with the anomalies, but still you will see that 2 millions of dots which are probably not connected or are giving you probably no sense, right? So that's why we decided to implement the so-called clustering, and then just to start talking to you, our system is designed to tell you, hey, the problem you see is typical for that group of users. Maybe it's just like a worldwide specific version of the browser, or maybe that's, the specifics of some particular country, right? That's exactly what clustering is about. So do expect that this year, definitely, the anomalies I've been presenting to you will be reported in context of so-called tree map, just to show you, hey, that's the segment of the users which is affected, or maybe that's the segment of the users who are experiencing, for example, improvement in the process, right? Make sense? Okay. Yeah, what is more important here? I'm still in time. Yeah. This is the sample from the customer, and I've been carefully observing, hey, what is the use case this company wants to address with the Omniscopy? Hello. They've been trying, the couple of different solutions on the market. Large-scale data, isolated internal processes, all the technical challenges we could experience, we experience as the vendor there. But they decided to contact and to work with us, let's say, for pretty simple reason. Normally, the analytics or these interaction points, how it's reported. Systems, not like the Omniscopy, that's similar to Omniscopy, tend to report about the actions. Sorry for the Polish here. It's not to challenge you, but I will do, the translation. This is, the search button. It might be, the cell, or, configure, let's say, a policy. Because that's about, the insurance business. What you see here is just like the insurance business, some specific insurance products, personal, motor or car insurances, the property, couple of other things. It's not important, okay? And guys came to us with the following challenge that they are one of many insurance companies on the Polish market. This is the story behind of it. One of many. And majority of their business is through so-called, the agencies, right? It's just like, well, typical broker. You know what broker is doing. Guys are selling, the policies of the vendors or, the insurance companies, which are offering the most intuitive products and ensuring that I can process, the insurance the fastest way, right? Because this is my margin and income, and that's the point. And then they came to the conclusion, that specific insurance company, that, hey, understanding the preferences of the users, those brokers, will help us to build the more intuitive and then pre-configure, for example, system for the majority of the agencies, right? This being said, the search button was not enough for them, or sell button was not enough for them. What they wanted to have was like, hey, if guys are searching or guys are selling, I want to know, hey, they are seeking for that specific policies, for that configuration, this product, done. So it's just like multi-dimensional analysis. I have to name it, sorry for that, maybe difficult, a bit too techy naming, but that's exactly how it is, We had to enable them for that slice and dice data processing discovery. There are a couple of techniques on the market which are helping you to do this analytics, in the fly. That's the point. So on the Omniscopy, again, zero coding on the browser side, we came to the conclusion, hey, the aspects like, hey, what is the product, what is, the agent, then the configuration, the validation, something. These are so-called some elements of the interface. For us, technically speaking, just because of architecture of the product, getting to that properties of the action, it's like 15 minutes configuration, maybe 1 hour configuration. So imagine that. They just decided to enrich that meta events I just mentioned about, okay? So whenever end users are clicking on some action, we are adding some extra properties to that meta event, okay? So if somebody searches, we will know, hey, what were, the search preferences? If they are selling, we are adding, some extra attribution on the top just to tell them, hey, these are, the overall statistics of selling. This data so far is being sent to Elasticsearch. That's the point. Do you know the Elasticsearch, maybe Splunk or this kind of the techniques? Have you heard about it? Yes, no? Okay, some of them, okay, I'm safe then. But it will come to the market anyway. I'm sure that your companies are using that one. At least, some guys on the IT side. So we just convinced the business, hey, you know what? Whenever you will integrate the Omniscopy with whatever products from that side, you are not limited with data discovery. And you can do this data discovery, in the real time, in the fly, okay? Another beauty is that you are not paying for this data. This is the point, because imagine you are paying for the session you decided to keep as, that digital proof, as the record. That's the point, okay? Done, near real time has been mentioned to you. Okay, and then getting the feedbacks, I've been doing sometimes in the past also, giving the presentation about how I do see personally, the whole process. And for those who are carefully, watching the slide, you will find a huge similarities to what Christopher was talking about. Because that's exactly about reducing the time which is required, for a sprint to validate the hypothesis at the end, Developers, what these guys from development are doing, they are just doing that or implementing that Scrum or Agile practices to build faster, right? You have heard definitely about the Scrum or Agile, right? Then design thinking, also well known. The question was still, how we can learn faster. This is the point, because that's all the story, how we can learn faster. And then I do personally believe that by measuring smart and providing you with data faster, you will have that facts faster. It means that it is somehow enabling you to experiment in the real time. I'm not convincing you to do, the test in the production, but that's somehow the idea of testing in the production. That's the point. Imagine A/B testing, kind of the observations. you have it right now. You no need to wait, for the data for this, 2 days or 3 days, because it will come immediately, because we are reporting and then recording in real time, right? And that's the point. Excuse me. It was not planned. This was planned. Yeah. Data privacy, it's just to show you. It is a sample. We are ensuring data anonymization and then the data masking in the fly. If something is expected not to be recorded, it's a real page, then in a session, recorded session, it will be masked. I mean, data will be removed. That's the point, okay? So that's the one. Time for a demo ride, just to show you that it's not like a mock-up, but something which is alive. Yeah, let me switch it. I do believe it will work. Do you see it? Yes, do you see it? So again, that's my demo project to run the Omniscopy, to work with the Omniscopy. It's just like a browser needed. No plugins. It's pretty simple. Everything is web-based. For the data analysis and then the user journeys, as you see, clicks, sample graph. You can search for specific segments of data, per events, per tags, per, the browsers. That's nothing new, Whoever was working with probably a Hotjar or a Full Story or a couple of similar solutions like that, then that filtering is just like pretty simple for you. What is the strongest on our part is the fact that we are not limiting you with amount of extra attributes on the top of the session. Whatever you can imagine is a part of the interface might be used as the session attribution, that's the point. And then searching for something like exit page or the landing page or last action in the session, it's just doable, okay? Clicking, applying the filter, we will reduce then the graph and then show you the sessions which are including some specific conditions. Same, for example, for the events, and then, yeah, just like a clicks, then the page loads, whatever you can imagine as the action might be automatically tagged as the action. System will detect it on our side, not on the browser side. Okay, and then graphs, as I said, the graphs are clickable. You can have them somehow. This is, as you see, very complex process, just like a part of graph is being presented for that specific time range. Okay, system now will rebuild the data. And then, as I promised, if you want to filter for specific exit point, like, hey, about us, probably it's just like a bad photo of my team on my about page, just because I'm experiencing some exit pages here, but I will click on it, okay? And this is the session. And by clicking on the session, you will have that let's say, a visual record of the activities, okay? I will show you the visual record, in a second. Another point is that a simpler form of user journey, which is a user and exits, still interactive. Show me that paths, maybe even the path for that specific source of data. Like, hey, guys who are coming from Google Analytics or maybe LinkedIn or another, the web channels. Or maybe, as you see, hey, that's not expected flow. I mean, the direction of the flow. Click. And the session will be filtered and you will see it, okay? And then, if I will decide to click on a specific session, this is the record you will see, by the way. Okay, it's expired. Okay, so that's the live. This is the sample record. I will open the one. Now data is coming. Browser is building for this record of the activity. Okay, that's the one. For super high resolution, by the way, because as you see, it's been a super high here, which is not very specific. Okay, that's the part of our team. By the way, I will stop here. This gentleman was expected to come here with me today, but he got sick, in the morning, so it's just like me alone. So excuse me for it. Okay, like in the movies, you can just move it forward, search for some actions. But even what you can do, you can just say, hey, you know what? I want to annotate somebody from my team and send to this person information like, hey, you know what? Where's the annotation here? I'm still lost again. But you can annotate somebody from your team. Just the one over here.
Yeah, it's all great.
Oh, yeah, then. Okay. Send the message, for that specific person. Type the command, and the person will be annotated automatically. Information of the message will be presented on the timeline of the actions or the comments. By clicking on the comment, you will be navigated, or this person will be navigated back to the session. The thing is that you can even start this so-called, the discussion threads in the bottom of the session, okay? So that's the one. And then, the anomalies at the end, because this is the point. Let me just get back here. Let me remove it, okay? The anomalies. Show more, okay? I can decide to show anomalies of some, of some specific type. Then on a tree map, you will see the anomalies. As I said, the graph is clickable. So by clicking on some specific anomalies, you will see the sessions which are including, for example, that particular anomaly. That's the way. This is exactly how we want to reduce the time which you need to explore or search for some specific cases, okay? If this is a slower page or a slower path or lower engagement time on a page, let this AI system raise, that flag for you, click on the session, and then you will have this visual case. This is the idea of the Omniscopy, okay? Any questions to that point? I should mention, at the very beginning that I tend to run I prefer personally, to run very interactive sessions. So at least, maybe there is one nominee for the question from your side. So just to keep that positive impression, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, fun fact, so if you please stay here for the questions. Fun fact, we started working together with you and Omniscopy in January 2021.
Yeah.
Right, so 2 years. And we have Melanie and Gianluca here from our team. We did a proof of concept with an earlier version of Omniscopy.
It's been even an early version of the Omniscopy,
right,
2 years ago.
And you had a design sprint named Melanie, for our Melanie.
Yeah.
Now, could you tell me more about, or us and the audience, more about your future developments and, for instance, artificial intelligence, what you're working on there? Is there anything you can tell us?
There is, because besides of that categorization or segmentation per properties, like, the demography or technologies, like, the browsers, countries, this is simple, Then I do believe that this year we will also have that behavioral categorization or segmentation. So grouping the sessions per some similar behavior of the users in a session. It's just for what? It's been, the Melanie candidate, from the past. Like, hey, can you please do some magic in this tool to help me to explore the following cases? I don't want to watch, these 15 sessions because I just have no time for it. To show me one session which is somehow a representative, for some population. So that's exactly what we are exploring. So this is the point. It will definitely come. Another, and probably this year, another point is that we do develop that user behavior analytics for mobile devices. I mean the native applications for the mobile devices. That's the point, okay? So this is a very important aspect. If you are at some point a customer of Dynatrace, have you heard about the Dynatrace maybe? It's a world-leading solution if it comes to digital performance management or that observability platform. We are the master partner in Poland, by the way, but the Omniscopy as the solution is available on the marketplace. So we can use the external data to feed the Omniscopy, and then the graphs, then the analytics, and then the anomalies detection. It will be also done automatically. So this is a very important aspect, okay? And that from that standpoint, I think that's probably the most important things.
Okay. Just a follow-up question. I know that you have at least 2 more slides for the conclusion. Would you like to conclude before opening the discussion, or are you ready?
No, I'm ready, you know. The point is that remember that it's like almost zero effort on your side. I'm not telling that if you will decide to go for the on-prem, there is zero cost of the implementation, because then it's me or somebody from our team installing the product technically at your data center. There is some effort always, you know, discussion about the firewalls, infrastructure, something. But for the simplicity of the offering, you have gentlemen from BST just to ensure that Omniscopy might be available as the service on that specific market to be aligned with, you know, the local law. This is a very important aspect for us. So point number 1, this is also related to, as I just mentioned, to BST cloud and then on-prem deployment. Important aspect, just to recap, you know, you are just paying for the data from our standpoint you are using. This is the point. So remember, it's not license per volume on the website. It's license per volume of the data you want to have or to keep for the analysis purposes. So that's the point. And then, yeah, the objective or kind of the stopper from the market was always whenever I'm releasing a new app and we are somehow convincing you for that more frequent, faster sprints, there is always some adjustment required at the browser side to report, for example, that meaningful events. That's the point, the data points. And then kind of improvement, I mean, even very solid differentiator is that from our standpoint, there is no need to involve external companies or internal developers just to readjust the configuration of the analytics to follow the changes in the application. Zero coding at the app side. That's a very important aspect. Okay, and these are probably the most important points. Okay.
Thank you. So, any questions? Yes, Angela.
You mentioned at the beginning that your offer is related to a project with the ergonomen. How do you see the combination or the optimal process of combining like this quantitative data with qualitative insights of such a project?
Very good question.
That's why I put on the last slide, you know, this one.
Yeah, that's the point. This is the point. There is always, you know, defining the compromise. This last one shows, hey, we are not, you know, I don't want to be considered as the alternative, for example, for the Google Analytics. No, we don't want to do it. I just heard from a couple of the companies, hey, we don't need Google Analytics anymore, but that's the decision. I'm always trying, hey, I'm offering you complementary solution. Somehow I do believe that if this left part is not working for you, because this is pretty simplified monitoring, mostly from the perspective of channels, we can come with questions to answer that, well, with the answers to address, you know, that objective, hey, what went wrong there? Okay, so that's about the Omniscopy, but answering precisely your question. And adding, you know, some extra comments to questions about the roadmap. Yes, there is something we have more, you know, on our side. That's okay. Okay. We have another R&D stuff, another solution, and the solution is designed to run that tests of the interfaces, you know, this quantitative versus, you know, the qualitative approach. But it's like asking, you know, some tester to perform some exercise and then collect the feedback. You know these tools. But what is very specific, you know, in our case, that we are also recording the face and then, you know, the voice of the person, just to add on the top of the session that so-called emotional attribution. Okay? So if somebody's, you know, running a test and giving that manual feedback, we also see, hey, you know what? Was it the moment of the hesitation? Was it the moment of frustration? Was it the moment of happiness? Or, you know, this sort of things. We have that one, so these factors. And then answering specifically a question, hey, what is the future of the roadmap? we want to have these two solutions combined together. Your work combined together because of what? And this is, the combination. If you will be doing some actions and then the changes, we want to have this data reported back to the Omniscopy to have so-called, the baseline of the behavior, of baseline of the product, of the change and then of the process, with information on the top. Hey, dear AI, there was a change. A purpose of the change was to simplify, and it was the scope of the changes. If I do see the anomalies, okay, are this, for example, this changes addressing, for example, the expectation of the market? This is the connection I do see. Okay, makes sense? So that individual testing I see as the feeds for the Omniscopy to combine it together. Now there is always, the expert knowledge, somebody who should sit, in both domains, having the understanding of data in the Omniscopy, but also somehow being participating in the process of change. So that's the person who is connecting the dots. And I would like to build, that automation integration somehow. So it should happen automatically for you. So this is the point.
Maybe just to add from my perspective, or our perspective, the ergonomic perspective, we can work with different tools. We use Hotjar. We could do more with Hotjar. Why working with you, Omniscopy? It's just the sheer power of the tool. We can do everything. It's interactive. You're developing very fast. We've been working with Omniscopy now for 2 years, and seeing the development behind that. We are also supporting this development with our insights so that your product can improve faster into a direction where we as UX and usability experts can really make use of the data. So with this cooperation, it's and we're still in a proof of concept. This will be a proof of concept for the next 10 years, because you'll be improving all the time.
That's how it is.
And as soon as we're really able to select our data, the grouped data, the categorized data that we need to find the root cause of the problem, then we're extremely fast also in finding the solutions. That's also something Ananya will focus on later on in your survey results and your outlook. Any other questions to Slawik?
Thank you for the question.
Yes,
Do
please.
you have any experience with global applications?
What do you mean the global applications?
Because you showed example now from Poland, and you were referring to
Yeah, it's working.
It's working.
Okay. With globally accessible applications, or do you focus mostly on local, where people then focus on the local law in terms of the data?
I will give you, the couple of samples of the data we do work with. That so far we aim to record 30,000 of concurrent users, sessions in the same time. So that's the point. I don't believe it's just like our limit. It's like a question of scaling up, and then if such a demand will come, then we will sit together with BST and then rescale on our side. This being said, it's not a strategy to be focused on some particular companies. We are focusing, and this is the purpose, on the enterprises specifically, because I do see the enterprises as the companies which are the most challenged by the law. It's from the law, regardless if it's the Swiss law or the Polish or European. The easiest is to hit to the large player for the penalty something. But this large player also, they do aim for some kind of improvements, and then they need to get the data. So that's why strategically we started to work with them. But the global is rather a question of how they do scale up. How we should scale up on our side, because the web for me is just like a web. This is the question of the strategy. Then if we will even experience, a load is probably a bit too high for us to handle that millions of the users, because as you see, we are recording a serious amount of data. The session is heavy stuff. It's not as light as the analytics. We found it the way not to affect the end user, because it was the trick, to find a way of recording at the end user side without affecting the end user. So this person should not experience, any slowdowns and something. So going to the large scale is doable because we can implement, the sampling on our side. I can just say, record, 10% of the population done. It's doable. So we are not limited for, let's say, a local markets or the local solutions. Finally, this is your decision how you want to go with that one. There is the only aspect you should consider, that having a global users and then the analytics. Global users are coming from different countries, like a different US and US typical law. For example, Switzerland with Switzerland typical law. Rest of the Europe with, GDPR things. So it's always discussion with, let's say, internal legal team. Hey, are we aligned with a law to record globally? That's probably this exercise. Okay? Technically speaking, we are not limited, but we have to find a way to ensure that we are not breaking the rules of the market. That's the point.
Well, thank you very much for also this vote. GDPR, I guess for most of us, is a ghost we all would like to be ghosted by, but that's unfortunately not the case. But it's also a good transition to Daniel from VST, and if you would like to switch microphones.